I acted like a poor and naive mother when my son brought his fiance's family to meet me. It turned out that my humble life was about to teach them the most expensive lesson they'd ever learn. Let me tell you something about assumptions. They're dangerous, they're cruel, and they reveal more about the person making them than the person they're aimed at. I learned that truth 63 years ago when I was born in a county hospital in rural Georgia, and I've watched it play out 1,000 times since. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what happened that Sunday afternoon when my son Marcus brought his fiancée Brittany and her entire family to my small house in the neighborhood I'd lived in for 35 years. They thought they knew who I was the moment they pulled up in their matching luxury SUVs. They thought they had me figured out before they even knocked on my door. And I let them. Oh yes, I let them think exactly what they wanted to think because I needed to see their true faces. I needed to know what kind of people my baby boy was marrying into. And what I discovered that day changed everything. My name is Eleanor Hayes, but everyone calls me Ellie. I'm 63 years old, and I've lived more lives than most people can imagine. I raised my son Marcus alone after his father walked out when Marcus was just 3 months old. Left me with the baby, $200 in my checking account, and a high school diploma. That's it. No family money, no safety net, no backup plan. Just me, a newborn, and a fierce determination that my child would have better than I did. So I worked. Lord, did I work. I cleaned houses during the day. I worked the night shift at a packaging plant. I took any overtime I could get. I slept 4 hours a night if I was lucky. I wore the same 3 outfits for years. I made meals out of nothing. I stretched every single dollar until it screamed. And slowly, so slowly you could barely see it happening, I saved. But I didn't just save. I learned. I watched the women whose houses I cleaned, the way they talked about their investments, their real estate, their business deals. I went to the public library on my lunch breaks and read everything I could find about money, about building wealth, about creating financial freedom. And I took every certification course I could afford, working my way from cleaning houses to property management, then to real estate investment, and finally to building my own property development company. By the time Marcus was 10, I owned 3 rental properties. By the time he was 15, I owned 12 properties. By the time he graduated college, I owned 47 properties across 3 states and had a commercial real estate portfolio worth $8 million. And by the time he called me that Tuesday afternoon to tell me he was engaged and wanted me to meet Brittany's family, I was worth just over $23 million. But you wouldn't know it by looking at me. You wouldn't know it by looking at my house, a modest 3-bedroom ranch in a working-class black neighborhood, where I'd lived since Marcus was 5. You wouldn't know it by looking at my car, a 12-year-old sedan that ran perfectly fine. You wouldn't know it by looking at my clothes, simple and practical, bought on sale or at discount stores. Because here's what I learned early and never forgot. Real wealth whispers. It doesn't shout. It doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. And it damned sure doesn't need to impress people who measure your worth by what you wear or where you live. I kept my wealth private for Marcus's sake, too. I wanted him to grow up normal, to understand the value of hard work, to build his own path without depending on his mama's money. I paid for his education through scholarships and what he thought were payment plans. I helped him when he really needed it, but made it look like small gifts, not the substantial support it actually was. I let him struggle a little, succeed a lot, and become a strong, independent man who worked as a civil engineer and earned his own way in the world. He never asked about my finances. He assumed I was comfortable but modest, maybe had a decent retirement saved up, nothing special, and I never corrected him. Until Brittany came into the picture. Marcus met Brittany at a professional conference. She was a pharmaceutical sales rep, bubbly and charming, and he fell hard and fast. They dated for a year before he proposed, and I was genuinely happy for him. Brittany seemed nice enough in our brief meetings, polite and friendly, always complimenting my cooking and my home. But I noticed something. A slight hesitation when she first saw my neighborhood, a quick glance at my furniture that lasted just a second too long, a way of mentioning her own parents' house, their cars, their lifestyle, just a little too often. I noticed, but I said nothing. I waited. I watched. Because rushing to judgment is just as bad as making assumptions. Then Marcus calls me that Tuesday afternoon. Mama, Brittany's parents want to meet you before the wedding. They're coming into town this weekend with her brother and his wife. Brittany suggested we all have dinner together, maybe at your place. They want to see where I grew up, meet you in your environment. Something in his voice made my antenna go up. A nervousness, an apology he hadn't made yet. That's fine, baby, I said calmly. I'll cook. Sunday afternoon work for everyone? Perfect. Thank you, Mama. I really appreciate this. He paused. They're used to a certain lifestyle. I just want you to know that. Don't feel like you have to impress them or anything. Just be yourself. And there it was, the warning, the gentle suggestion that I might not measure up, that I should know my place, that I should understand they were out of my league. Don't you worry about a thing, I told him sweetly. I'll be exactly who I am. After we hung up, I sat in my living room, looking around at my modest furniture, my simple decorations, my comfortable but unremarkable home. And I smiled, because I knew exactly what I was going to do. I was going to play poor. Not just modest, but struggling, apologetic, grateful, humble to the point of almost being pitiful. I was going to give them exactly what they expected, exactly what they wanted to see. And I was going to watch very carefully how they treated the woman they thought was beneath them. Because that would tell me everything I needed to know about the family my son was marrying into. And if they failed the test, if they showed me who they really were, well, then I would show them who I really was. And that revelation would cost them more than money could measure. The next few days, I prepared carefully. I hid away anything in my house that looked too nice. I brought out my oldest dishes, my most worn furniture covers, my most humble decorations. I planned a menu that was delicious but appeared budget conscious. I wore my oldest church clothes, the kind that were respectable but clearly has seen better days. I even drove my car to look a little dustier than usual. Marcus called twice to check on preparations, his voice tight with worry. Mama, you don't have to go to any trouble. Maybe we should just meet at a restaurant instead. Nonsense, I replied. I want to cook for my future daughter-in-law's family. It's what we do. It's tradition. I know, but nothing, baby. This is important to you, so it's important to me. What I didn't tell him was that it was important to me for entirely different reasons than he thought. I wasn't trying to impress them. I was testing them. And I'd been testing people for 60 decades. I knew exactly what to look for. Sunday arrived bright and clear. I got up early and started cooking. Not fancy food, but good food. The kind of soul food I grew up with and perfected over the years. Fried chicken, collard greens, mac and cheese, cornbread, sweet potato pie. Food that filled the belly and warmed the heart. Food that told a story of making much out of little. At 2 o'clock, I heard the cars pull up. Multiple cars. I peeked out the window and saw 2 brand new luxury SUVs gleaming in the afternoon sun, looking wildly out of place on my modest street, where most people drove practical sedans and older vehicles. Neighbors were definitely noticing. I took a deep breath, put on my most humble smile, and opened the door just as they reached my small porch. Marcus came up first, giving me a tight hug. Hey, Mama, thank you for this. Of course, baby. I patted his back and looked past him at the group approaching. Brittany came next, looking stunning in an outfit that probably costs more than most people's monthly rent. She gave me a quick hug and a bright smile. Mrs. Hayes, so good to see you again. Please, call me Ellie, sweetheart. I smiled warmly. Then came the parents. Brittany's mother, Patricia, was a tall, elegant woman with professionally styled hair, expensive jewelry, and an outfit that screamed designer. Her father, Gerald, was equally polished in casual, expensive clothes, a watch that caught the sunlight, and shoes that probably never touched actual dirt. "Mrs. Hayes," Patricia said, extending a perfectly manicured hand. Her handshake was brief, her fingers barely touching mine. "How lovely to finally meet you. Please, come in, come in." I stepped back, gesturing them inside. I watched Patricia's eyes sweep across my small living room, taking in every detail: the old sofa, the dated TV, the simple decorations. Her expression barely changed, but I saw it, that tiny flicker of what? Pity? Disdain? Confirmation of what she'd already assumed. Gerald followed, his expression neutral, but his eyes doing the same assessment. Behind them came Brittany's brother Devon and his wife Crystal. Same expensive clothes, same polished appearance, and the same quick evaluation of their surroundings. "What's a cozy home?" Patricia finally said, her voice warm but her word choice deliberate. Cozy, the polite word for small, for less than. "Thank you," I replied humbly. "It's not much, but it's been home for a long time. Raised my Marcus here." I gestured to the sofa. "Please, sit down, make yourselves comfortable. Can I get anyone something to drink? I have sweet tea, water, lemonade." "Water would be fine." Patricia settled carefully on my sofa as if afraid it might stain her clothes. I brought out the waters on a tray with mismatched glasses, the kind you collect over years from random places. I saw Crystal nudge Devin slightly, her eyes flickering toward the glasses. They thought I didn't notice. I noticed everything. "Dinner will be ready in just a few minutes," I said cheerfully. "Y'all just relax. Marcus, baby, why don't you show them those pictures from when you were little? They're in that album on the shelf." Marcus looked uncomfortable, but retrieved the old photo album. I disappeared into the kitchen, but I could hear everything. The walls in my house were thin by design today. I'd make sure of it. "Oh my goodness, look how cute Marcus was!" Brittany's voice carried clearly. "He certainly has come a long way," Patricia's voice followed, and there was something in her tone, something that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. "You must be so proud of him, Gerald, our future son-in-law, pulling himself up, making something of himself despite the circumstances he grew up in." Despite the circumstances. There it was, the first arrow, shot with a smile. I stirred the collard greens slowly, listening. "Brittany tells us he's doing very well as an engineer. Good, stable career. That's important." "Absolutely," Patricia agreed. "Stability is everything, especially when you come from, when you have to build everything from scratch with no foundation." No foundation. Arrow number 2. I plated the food carefully. This was my test, and they were already failing. But I needed more. I needed to be absolutely certain. I brought the food out on my oldest serving dishes. The fried chicken was golden and perfect. The sides were rich and flavorful. Everything looked and smelled delicious. But it was presented humbly, simply, like a woman doing her best with what she had. "Oh my," Patricia said as I set everything on the small dining table. "This is quite a spread." "I hope y'all are hungry," I said with a warm smile. I made all of Marcus's favorites. We sat down, me at the head of my small table, Marcus and Brittany on one side, her family squeezed in on the other side and around. It was tight, deliberately tight. Marcus cleared his throat. "Shall we say grace?" "Of course," I nodded, bowing my head. Gerald led the prayer, and I'll give him credit. It was a good prayer. Thankful, humble, gracious. His words were beautiful. I just wondered if he meant any of them. We began eating. The food was excellent, even if I do say so myself. Years of cooking will teach you how to make magic happen in a kitchen. They all took small, polite bites at first, then bigger ones. The food was winning them over, even if I wasn't. "This is delicious, Mrs. Hayes. Really, really good." "Thank you, sweetheart. I'm glad you like it." "So, Ellie," said Patricia, dabbing her mouth with a paper napkin, "I'd made sure not to have cloth ones out. Marcus has told us a bit about you, but we'd love to know more. What is it you do? For work, I mean." "Here we go." "Oh, I'm retired now. I worked in property management for many years. Nothing fancy, just making sure buildings were maintained, tenants were happy, that sort of thing." "Property management," Patricia repeated, as if testing the words. "How practical?" "It paid the bills," I said humbly, looking down at my plate. "Kept a roof over our heads and food on the table. That's all that mattered." "Of course," Patricia agreed quickly. "Honest work is always admirable. And you did it all alone, I understand? Marcus's father wasn't in the picture?" The room tensed. Marcus's fork froze halfway to his mouth, but I prepared for this question. I knew it would come. "No," I said quietly. "He left when Marcus was just a baby, so it was just the two of us." I smiled at Marcus. "But we did just fine, didn't we, baby?" "More than fine, Mama," Marcus said firmly, his jaw tight. "Well," Gerald interjected, "single mothers are the backbone of the Black community. The strength it takes to raise a child alone, especially a son, and see him become successful, that's remarkable." His words were kind, but I heard what he didn't say. The unspoken, "Despite having no help, no resources, no advantages, you managed to produce one acceptable result." "Marcus made it easy," I said modestly. "He was always a good boy. Smart, hardworking. He got scholarships for school, worked his way through college. I couldn't have been prouder of him." "Scholarships are wonderful," Patricia said. "Of course, we were able to pay for Brittany's education outright, and Devin's as well. No loans, no debts. We believe in giving our children every possible advantage." Arrow number 3, 4, and 5. All in one sentence. "That's a blessing," I said genuinely. "Not everyone can do that." "I'm sure Brittany appreciates it." "I do, Mama," Brittany said quickly, but she looked uncomfortable. "We also bought both our children their first homes, started them off right, didn't want them struggling unnecessarily." "That's very generous," I replied. Crystal jumped in. "Brittany, didn't you say the wedding is going to be at that gorgeous estate outside the city? The one that cost like $50,000 just for the venue?" $65,000, Patricia corrected proudly. "But it's worth every penny. This is our baby girl's special day. We want it to be perfect." $65,000, I repeated softly, as if the number was incomprehensible to me, which it would be to the person I was pretending to be. My goodness, that's quite something. "Well, we've been saving for this her whole life," Patricia said. "A wedding is an investment in the couple's future. We're sparing no expense. The best caterer, the best photographer, the best of everything. Brittany deserves it." "She certainly does," I agreed. "And of course," Gerald added, cutting into his chicken, "we'll be helping them with the down payment on a house after the wedding. Something in a nice neighborhood. Safe, good schools for when the grandchildren come. I imagine you're excited about the prospect of grandchildren too." "Oh, very much so," I said warmly. "It'll be wonderful for them to have both sets of grandparents involved," Patricia said, her tone shifting slightly. "Though, of course, with the distance and different, well, when you have to build everything from scratch with no foundation." No foundation. Arrow number 3. I took a slow sip of my sweet tea. The ice clanked in a glass. "I appreciate your generosity toward my son. A mother always wants her child to have more than she did." "Exactly," Gerald said, seeming relieved that I understood my place. "And that's what family is for, supporting each other. Of course, that support looks different depending on everyone's circumstances."
Devin cleared his throat. "This mac and cheese is incredible, Mrs. Hayes. What's your secret?" "Just a little extra cheese and some patience," I replied with a smile. But Patricia wasn't done. "Ellie, we were thinking for the wedding, we'd love for you to be involved. Maybe you could handle something simple, the guest book table perhaps, or help with the favor bags. Nothing too stressful." Nothing too stressful. Translation: nothing important, nothing visible, nothing that required money or sophistication. "I'd be happy to help however I can," I said. "Wonderful," Patricia beamed. "We'll keep you busy with the little task, the simple things."
Brittany was staring at her plate, her cheeks flushed. Marcus's jaw was so tight I thought his teeth might crack. But I remained calm, serene, the humble mother who knew her place. "More tea, anyone?" I asked, standing up. As I refilled glasses, Patricia continued her performance. "You know, Ellie, I have to say, I admire you. I really do. Raising a child alone in a neighborhood like this, with limited resources, and still managing to keep him out of trouble, that takes real strength." Limited resources. A neighborhood like this. Each phrase was carefully chosen, each one a small cut disguised as a compliment. "This neighborhood raised some of the finest people I know," I said evenly. "Teachers, nurses, small business owners, good, hard-working folks. I was blessed to raise Marcus here." "Oh, I'm sure," Patricia said quickly. "I didn't mean anything negative. It's just that we all know certain areas have more challenges, more obstacles for children to overcome." Gerald nodded, "which makes Marcus's success even more impressive. He beat the odds." The odds. As if my son, growing up to be a good man, was some kind of statistical anomaly instead of the result of love, discipline, sacrifice, and intention. I sat back down and cut into my chicken. "Tell me about your family," I said to Gerald. "How did you and Patricia meet?" Gerald smiled, clearly more comfortable with this topic. "We met in college. Both of us were pre-med initially, though Patricia switched to business administration. I went on to become a cardiologist. We've been blessed with successful careers and the ability to provide well for our family." "A cardiologist," I repeated. "That's wonderful. Helping people, saving lives?" "It's been rewarding," Gerald acknowledged, "and lucrative, I'll be honest. Hard work pays off. That's what I always tell my children. Education, ambition, and making the right connections. That's the formula for success." Making the right connections. I wondered if he realized what he was really saying, that success wasn't just about hard work. It was about access, about opportunities, about doors that opened because of who you knew and what you looked like to the right people. "Marcus has certainly worked hard," I said. "He has," Patricia agreed, "and Brittany saw something special in him. We raised her to see beyond superficial things, to value character and potential." She paused meaningfully. "Even if someone doesn't come from wealth or prestigious backgrounds." There it was again, the constant reminder that Marcus was beneath them, that they were doing him a favor, that Brittany was graciously slumming it by marrying my son. Crystal leaned forward. "Mrs. Hayes, this house is so authentic. How long have you lived here?" Authentic. Another carefully chosen word, not beautiful, not charming, authentic. The word white people use when they want to say ghetto, but know they shouldn't. 35 years, I replied. Bought it when Marcus was 5. It was all I could afford at the time, but it became home. And you never wanted to move? Crystal pressed. Upgrade to something bigger, nicer? This house has everything I need. 3 bedrooms, a yard, good bones. Why move when you're content?
Patricia and Crystal exchanged a look. They didn't understand contentment. To them, life was about constant accumulation, constant upgrading, constant display. "Well," Patricia said, "at least Marcus won't have to stay in a neighborhood like this. With our help, he and Brittany will be able to afford something in one of the better suburbs. Safe streets, good schools, the right kind of neighbors." The right kind of neighbors. I knew exactly what she meant. Marcus finally spoke, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. "Mama's neighborhood is perfectly safe. I grew up here. I turned out fine." "Of course you did, sweetheart," Patricia said soothingly. "We're just thinking about the future, about your children. You want them to have every advantage, don't you?" "They'll have love," Marcus said firmly. "That's the most important advantage." "Love doesn't pay for private schools," Gerald said with a chuckle. "But fortunately, that's where we come in." I watched Brittany. She hadn't said much since the food arrived. She was pushing her mac and cheese around her plate, her eyes down, her body language screaming discomfort. This wasn't sitting right for her, but she wasn't stopping it either. She was letting her parents steamroll over me, over Marcus, over basic decency, and saying nothing. That told me something important. "The pie is cooling," I said, standing again. "I'll bring it out in just a minute. Devin, would you mind helping me clear these plates?" "Of course, Mrs. Hayes," Devin said quickly. He seemed eager to escape the tension at the table. In the kitchen, he helped me stack dishes. "Mrs. Hayes," he said quietly, "I want to apologize for—" "Don't," I interrupted gently. "You haven't done anything wrong, and you don't need to apologize for other people's behavior." He looked relieved. "That mac and cheese really was amazing. I'll send you home with the recipe," I promised. We returned with the sweet potato pie in small plates. I served everyone generous slices. The pie was perfect, the crust flaky, the filling sweet and spiced just right. They ate in silence for a moment, and I could see the appreciation on their faces despite themselves. "This is delicious, Mama," Marcus said. "Best sweet potato pie I've ever had," Devin added. "Family recipe," I said. "My grandmother taught me. She was a domestic worker for 50 years, raised 6 children on practically nothing, but she can make a pie that would make you weep." "How lovely," Patricia said, but her tone suggested anything but. Another reminder that my family came from the help, that we were service people, that our skills were in cooking and cleaning, not in boardrooms and country clubs. Gerald checked his expensive watch. "Well, this has been wonderful, Ellie. Thank you for your hospitality, but we'd probably get going. We have dinner reservations at 8. "More food?" I asked with surprise. "After all this?" Laughter. "Oh, this was lovely, but we have plans at Les Bernardines. Gerald made reservations months ago. It's one of the finest restaurants in the city. The tasting menu is extraordinary." Of course, my home-cooked meal was just an obligation to get through before their real dinner. My food, my home, my company, it was all just a box to check. Meet Marcus's poor mother, check. Now back to their actual lives. "I hope you enjoyed it anyway," I said humbly. "We did," Gerald assured me, standing. "You're a wonderful cook. That's a real skill." A real skill. As if it were my only skill. As if that was all I was capable of. They gathered their things. Patricia gave me a brief hug, her body barely touching mine. She said, "We'll be in touch about those wedding tasks for you, the simple ones." Gerald shook my hand. "Thank you again. It's good to know Marcus has a mother who loves him very much." Even that compliment came with a pause, as if he'd almost said something else. Crystal and Devin said their goodbyes. Devin's was genuine. Crystal's was perfunctory. They filed out to their luxury SUVs. I stood on my small porch with Marcus and Brittany, waving as they drove away. The moment the cars disappeared around the corner, Marcus exploded. "Mama, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I didn't know they would." "Hush," I said calmly. "Come inside, both of you."
We walked back into the house. I closed the door and turned to face them. Marcus was pacing, his fists clenched. Brittany stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. "Mama, I can't believe they—" "Sit down," I said quietly. The tone in my voice stopped him mid-sentence. He sat. Brittany sat beside him. I remained standing, looking at both of them. "Marcus, how long have you known Brittany's family was like this?" He opened his mouth, closed it, then said, "I've met them a few times. They've always been polite to me, but distant. I thought maybe they just needed time to warm up." "Brittany," I turned to her, "how long have you known your parents would treat me this way?" She sobbed. "I didn't think they'd be this bad. I told them about you, about your neighborhood, about how you raised Marcus alone, and I saw something change in their faces. But I thought, I hoped, that when they met you, they'd see what I see, that you're amazing, that you're strong, that you raised an incredible man." "But they didn't see that," I said. "No," she whispered. "They saw what they wanted to see, what they always see, someone they could feel superior to." I nodded slowly. "And you didn't stop them?" "I know," Brittany cried harder. "I know, and I'm so ashamed. I should have said something. I should have defended you. But they're my parents, and I've spent my whole life trying not to disappoint them, trying to be perfect, trying to make them proud. And I froze. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Hayes. I'm so sorry." Marcus put his arm around her. "Mama, please. Brittany isn't like them. She's not." "I know she's not," I said calmly. "If she were, she wouldn't be crying right now. She wouldn't feel shame." But she also didn't stand up. Not once. "I'll talk to them," Brittany said urgently. "I'll tell them they were wrong. I'll make them apologize." "No," I said firmly. "You won't." They both looked at me in confusion. "You won't say anything to them," I continued. "Not yet. Because I'm not finished." "What do you mean?" Marcus asked. I sat down in my old armchair, the one I'd had for 20 years. I looked at my son and his fiancée, both watching me with worried, confused faces. "Let me ask you something, Marcus. What do you think I'm worth?" He blinked. "What?" "Financially, what do you think I'm worth?" "Mama, that doesn't matter. Humor me." He shifted uncomfortably. "I don't know. Maybe you have some retirement savings, maybe 100,000, enough to live comfortably, pay your bills, not worry too much." I looked at Brittany. "And you?" She wiped her eyes. I assume something similar. Maybe a pension from your property management job." I nodded slowly. "That's what everyone assumes. That's what I let everyone assume, including you, Marcus." I paused. "But you're both very, very wrong." "I don't understand," Marcus said. "I didn't work in property management, baby. I own the property management company. And I didn't manage a few buildings. At my peak, I managed over 200 properties across 3 states, residential,
commercial, industrial. I sold that company 8 years ago for $12 million. The silence was absolute. Marcus's mouth fell open. What? But that wasn't all, I continued. I'd been investing in real estate since you were 10 years old, buying properties in neighborhoods people overlooked, neighborhoods like this one, fixing them up, renting them out, building equity. By the time you graduated college, I had a portfolio worth $8 million. Today, with market appreciation and continued investments, my net worth is approximately $23 million. Brittany gasped. Marcus just stared at me like I was speaking a foreign language. 23 million, he repeated weakly. Give or take. I haven't checked this quarter's statements yet. But how? Why didn't you ever... Marcus struggled to form words. Mama, why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted you to build your own life, I said gently. I wanted you to work hard, struggle a little, appreciate what you earned. I wanted you to develop character, not entitlement. I wanted you to be the man you are, not the man you might have become if you'd grown up knowing your mother was a multimillionaire. Does anyone know? Brittany whispered. My lawyers, my accountants, my financial advisors, a few business associates, but no one in my personal life, not my neighbors, not my church, and until today, not my son. Marcus stood up, paced to the window, then back. I can't process this. You've been living in this house, driving that car, wearing those clothes, while you had millions. Yes. Why? Because this house is home, because that car runs fine, because those clothes are comfortable, because I don't need to prove anything to anyone. Until today. Today. What do you mean? Marcus asked. I mean that your future in-laws just spent 3 hours insulting me, belittling me, treating me like I'm beneath them. They measured my worth by my zip code, my furniture, and my wardrobe. They made it crystal clear that they think Marcus is marrying up, that Brittany is doing him a favor, that I'm the embarrassing poor relative they'll have to tolerate at family gatherings. Mama, and I let them, I continued. I played the part. I was humble, grateful, small. I gave them exactly what they expected to see because I needed to know who they really are. And now I know. Brittany's face was pale. What are you going to do? I smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. I'm going to teach them a lesson about assumptions, about treating people with respect regardless of what they have or where they come from, about the difference between having money and having class. How? Marcus asked. The wedding, I said simply. They're planning to spend $65,000 on the venue. They're going to buy you a house. They're going to show off their wealth and their generosity. They're going to position themselves as the heroes of this story, the wealthy benefactors lifting my poor son up into their world. I don't want their money, Marcus said firmly. After today, I don't want anything from them. I know you don't, baby, but you love Brittany, and she loves you, and I'm not going to let her parents' ugliness destroy that. Unless you want it to. No, she said quickly. I love Marcus. I want to marry him, but I don't know how to fix this. My parents, they're so set in their ways, so convinced they're right about everything. They're about to learn they're wrong. Very, very wrong. But I need your cooperation, both of you. What do you need us to do? Marcus asked. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Don't tell them what I've told you. Don't let on that anything has changed. Let them continue planning their expensive wedding, making their generous offers, feeling superior. Let them believe they know exactly who I am. And then what? Brittany asked. And then, at the right moment, I'm going to show them who I really am. And that revelation is going to cost them something money can't buy. What's that? Their pride.
The next 2 months were fascinating to watch. Patricia called me 3 times to discuss my simple tasks for the wedding. Each conversation was a masterclass in condescension wrapped in politeness. Ellie, we were thinking you could handle the guest book, she said during the first call. It's important, but not complicated. Just make sure people sign in. You can handle that, can't you? Of course, Patricia. I'd be happy to. Wonderful. Now, about your outfit for the wedding, do you have something appropriate? Something nice? If not, I can take you shopping. Somewhere affordable, of course. We don't want you to strain your budget. That's kind of you, but I'll manage. Are you sure? Because this is a very upscale venue. Very elegant. I'd hate for you to feel out of place. I smiled into the phone. I'll be just fine, Patricia. The second call came 3 weeks later. Ellie, I wanted to give you a heads up. We've invited some very prominent people to this wedding. Doctors, lawyers, business owners, Gerald's colleagues from the hospital, my friends from the junior league. These are sophisticated people. I understand. I'm only telling you this so you're prepared, so you know what to expect. I'd hate for you to feel uncomfortable or intimidated. How thoughtful of you to worry about me. Well, you've lived a simpler life. These kinds of events might be overwhelming. Just stay near the guest book table, do your job, and you'll be fine. Oh, and try not to engage too much with the guests. We don't want to take up too much of your energy. Translation: don't embarrass us by talking to our important friends. I'll do my best, I said sweetly. The third call came 2 weeks before the wedding. Ellie, I wanted to discuss something sensitive. The rehearsal dinner. It's going to be quite expensive, very exclusive. Just immediate family and the wedding party. We were thinking, since you're not in the wedding party, and it might be difficult for you financially to attend such an upscale event, perhaps you could skip it. We'd completely understand. Are you uninviting me to my son's rehearsal dinner? No, of course not. I'm just saying we'd understand if you couldn't make it. No pressure. I'll be there, Patricia. A pause. Oh, well, that's fine. The restaurant is Le Cirque. Very formal, very expensive. I just want you to be prepared. I appreciate the warning. Through all of this, Marcus was barely holding it together. He wanted to confront them, to tell them off, to defend me. But I made him promise to wait. Trust me, baby, I said. This is going to work out exactly the way it needs to. Brittany was a mess. She tried twice to talk to her parents about their behavior, but they'd shut her down both times. We've been nothing but kind to that woman. We're including her in everything. What more does she want? Gerald had been even worse. If Marcus's mother feels insulted, that's her problem. We've been more than generous. Some people just can't appreciate what's being done for them. Meanwhile, I was making my own preparations. I called my stylist, a woman who dressed me for corporate events for years. Angela,
I need something spectacular, something that says money without screaming it. Elegant, powerful, unforgettable. For what occasion? Revenge, I said simply. She laughed. My favorite kind of event. Come to the showroom tomorrow. I also called my financial advisor. Robert, I need you to prepare some documents for me. Portfolio summary, asset list, everything. Make it official looking but easy to read. What's this for? Educational purposes, I replied. The day before the rehearsal dinner, I went to the salon. Full treatment. Hair, nails, makeup consultation, the works. The stylist who'd done my hair for years looked at me with knowing eyes. Big day tomorrow? You could say that. Someone's about to learn not to underestimate you, aren't they? I smiled. Several someones. That evening, Marcus came over. He looked stressed, exhausted. Mama, are you sure about this? Maybe we should just talk to them, tell them the truth, privately. This whole thing feels like it might blow up. It's supposed to blow up, baby. That's the point. But what if it ruins the wedding? What if Brittany's family refuses to come? What if they cut her off? Then you'll know exactly what kind of people they are. And Brittany will have to decide what matters more, her approval or her integrity. He sat down heavily on my old couch. I still can't believe you have $23 million and you're sitting on this couch. This couch is comfortable. It's falling apart. It has character. He shook his head, but he was smiling. You're something else, Mama, you know that. I learned a long time ago that the best way to see who people really are is to let them underestimate you. People reveal their true selves when they think you're beneath them, when they think they're better than you, when they think they can't hurt you. And tomorrow? Tomorrow, they learn they were wrong about all of it. The rehearsal dinner was at Cirque, one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city. When I walked in wearing my simple cloth coat over my outfit, carrying my old purse, Patricia's face lit up with that familiar mixture of pity and satisfaction. Ellie, you made it! She air-kissed near my cheeks. How wonderful! Come, let me show you to the table. The private dining room was spectacular. Crystal chandeliers, white linens, gold accents everywhere. About 20 people were already there, all dressed to the nines, all looking expensive and important. Patricia walked me to a chair at the far end of the table, the least important seat, the one furthest from the bride and groom. We thought you'd be comfortable here, close to the exit in case you need to leave early. We know these long dinners can be exhausting. How considerate of you, I said. I kept my coat on. Everyone else had checked theirs, but I held on to mine, clutching my old purse. I looked exactly like a woman out of her depth, overwhelmed by the luxury around her, trying to make herself small. Patricia introduced me to the table. Everyone, this is Eleanor, Marcus's mother. She's joining us this evening. Polite smiles, welcoming nods, but I could see the assessments happening. The quick glances at my coat, my purse, my seat placement. They knew immediately who I was in the social hierarchy, the poor relation, the charity case. Gerald stood to give a toast. We're so happy to have everyone here tonight. Tomorrow, our beautiful daughter, Brittany, marries Marcus, and we couldn't be more thrilled. We've worked hard our entire lives to give our children the best of everything, and seeing Brittany so happy makes it all worthwhile. Applause around the table. We want to thank everyone for being here, for being part of our family celebration. And we want to especially welcome Marcus's mother, Eleanor, who joins us from a very different world than ours. But that's what makes this union so special. It bridges different backgrounds, different experiences, different... Different circumstances. Applause. I saw several people glance at me with sympathetic smiles. The poor woman from the different circumstances. The first course arrived. Something tiny and artistic on a huge plate. The waiter described it in French. Everyone nodded, knowingly, except me. I looked at it with visible confusion, playing my part perfectly. It's a scallop tartare, Crystal whispered loudly, as if I were hard of hearing or simple. You eat it with this fork. Thank you, dear, I meekly said. The dinner continued, course after course, wine after wine, and conversation after conversation about things I supposedly knew nothing about. European vacations, investment properties, private schools, country clubs. Patricia was in her element, holding court, telling stories about Brittany's childhood. We made sure she had everything, the best schools, the best opportunities. We knew that's what it took to succeed in this world. One of Gerald's colleagues, another doctor, turned to me and said, "And you, Eleanor, where did Marcus go to school?" "Public school," I said quietly. "Right in our neighborhood." "Uh-huh," he said, as if that explained everything. "And he turned out well despite that. Good for him."
Despite that, as if a public school education in a Black neighborhood was something to overcome rather than a foundation to build on. Finally, dessert arrived. Something chocolate and elaborate. As we ate, Gerald said again. "I have an announcement," he said, beaming. "Patricia and I wanted to do something special for the happy couple. So tomorrow, after the wedding, we're going to present them with a check for $200,000 for their first house, because that's what family does. We take care of our own." The table erupted in applause and congratulations. Brittany looked uncomfortable. Marcus looked furious. But Gerald and Patricia basked in the admiration, accepting praise for their incredible generosity. $200,000? One woman gushed. "That's extraordinary." "We believe in investing in our children's future," Patricia said proudly. "Unlike some families, we have the means to truly help, to truly make a difference in their lives." Unlike some families. She looked directly at me when she said it. That was the moment. That was when I'd had enough. I stood up slowly. Every eye turned to me. I was still wearing my old coat, still clutching my worn purse. I looked like I was about to excuse myself, maybe overwhelmed by the grandeur, maybe intimidated by the wealth on display. "Eleanor?" Patricia said with false concern. "Are you all right? Do you need to leave?" "No, Patricia, I'm not leaving, but I do need to say something." The room went quiet. "I want to thank you and Gerald for including me tonight, for welcoming me into your family, for making such generous provisions for my son and your daughter." Patricia smiled, thinking I was about to give a humble, grateful speech. $200,000 is a remarkable gift, I continued. Truly remarkable, and I'm sure Marcus and Brittany appreciate the thought behind it. "We're happy to do it," Gerald said magnanimously. "I'm sure you are. But I need to tell you something. I need to be honest with all of you about who I am." I slowly unbuttoned my coat. Underneath was a custom-designed dress that Angela had created for me. Deep emerald silk, perfectly tailored, elegant, and powerful. It was a dress that whispered wealth in a way Patricia's flashy designer label screamed it. Simple, exquisite, expensive. The room's energy shifted immediately. People sat up straighter. Patricia's smile faltered. I took off my coat completely and handed it to a confused waiter. From my old purse, I pulled out a slim leather portfolio. Not the old purse's contents. This had been hidden inside. I opened it and removed several documents. "My name is Eleanor Hayes," I said, my voice no longer small or humble. It was clear, strong, commanding. "And I need to correct some misconceptions.
"What are you doing?" Patricia asked, her voice tight. "I'm telling the truth. Something I should have done 2 months ago, but I needed to see who you really were first. I needed to understand what kind of people my son was marrying into." I walked slowly around the table, my heels clicking on the marble floor. Every eye followed me. You see, I didn't just work in property management. I owned Property Group, one of the largest property management and real estate investment companies in the region. At its peak, we managed over 200 properties across 3 states. I sold that company 8 years ago for $12 million. Silence. Complete silence. I placed the first document in front of Gerald. His face went pale as he looked at the numbers. But that wasn't my only income stream. I've been investing in real estate since Marcus was 10 years old, buying properties in neighborhoods people like you overlooked, neighborhoods you probably drive through quickly with your doors locked. I saw value where others saw blight. I saw potential where others saw poverty. I placed another document on the table. This is my current real estate portfolio: 47 residential properties, 12 commercial properties, 3 industrial complexes. Current market value approximately $18 million. Patricia's hand flew to her mouth. And then there are my other investments: stocks, bonds, mutual funds, diversified portfolio managed by Whitmore Financial Group. I place another document down. Current value approximately $5 million. The room was absolutely silent except for my voice and the sound of papers being placed on expensive linen. My retirement accounts, my liquid assets, my business holdings in 3 different companies, more documents. Altogether, my current net worth is approximately $23.7 million, give or take, depending on the market. I walked back to my seat and stood behind it, looking at Patricia and Gerald. Their faces were white, shocked, confused, humiliated. "So you see," I said calmly, "when you offered my son $200,000 for a house, I want you to understand something. I could buy him 10 houses, with cash, tomorrow, and never notice the money was gone." Someone gasped. I think it was Crystal. But I didn't. I didn't buy him a house. I didn't give him money. I didn't pave his path with gold because I wanted him to build his own life, to work hard, to appreciate what he earned, to develop character instead of entitlement, to become a man who values people for who they are, not what they have. I looked around the table at all the shocked faces. Unlike some people, I don't believe that money makes you better than anyone else. I don't believe that wealth gives you the right to look down on others. I don't believe that designer clothes and luxury cars and expensive restaurants determine your worth as a human being. Patricia found her voice. You lied to us. You deceived us." "No," I said firmly. "I never lied. You asked what I did, and I told you I worked in property management. True. You assumed I was poor, and I let you assume it, because I wanted to see how you treat someone you thought was beneath you, and you showed me exactly who you are." "This is ridiculous," Gerald blustered. "If you had money, we would have known. Marcus would have known." "Marcus didn't know because I didn't tell him, and you didn't know because you never asked the right questions. You saw my neighborhood, my house, my clothes, and you made assumptions. You measured my worth by your standards and found me lacking. You spent 2 months treating me like charity case, like someone to pity, like an embarrassment you'd have to tolerate at family gatherings." I pulled out one more document. This is a cashier's check made out to Marcus and Brittany Hayes for $300,000, my wedding gift to them. I placed it in front of him. His hands were shaking as he picked it up. $300,000, I said, looking at Gerald. "Not $100,000 more than your generous gift, because that's what I planned to give them all along, before I met you, before I knew what kind of people you were." Patricia was crying now, tears of rage and humiliation running down her carefully made-up face. "How dare you?" she whispered. "How dare you embarrass us like this?" Embarrass you, I repeated. I'm not the one who spent months insulting someone, treating them like they were inferior, offering them simple tasks and warning them about sophisticated people. I'm not the one who tried to uninvite someone from their own son's rehearsal dinner because the restaurant was too expensive for them. I'm not the one who measured another human being's worth by their zip code and their wardrobe. I picked up my documents and put them back in the leather portfolio. You embarrassed yourselves, I said quietly. I just gave you the opportunity, and you took it, enthusiastically. Marcus stood up. Mama, it's all right, baby, I said gently. Then I looked at Brittany. I want you to know something, sweetheart. None of this is about you. You didn't treat me badly. You were just too afraid of your parents to defend me. That's something you'll need to work on. But you're not them. You're better than them. Don't forget that. Brittany was sobbing. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Hayes. I'm so sorry. I know you are, baby. I know. I turned to leave, then stopped and looked back at Patricia and Gerald one more time. One more thing. That simple neighborhood you look down on, the one with challenges and obstacles, I own 40% of the real estate in it. Every time property values go up, I make money. That neighborhood made me rich, and it raised a man good enough for your daughter. You might want to think about that.
I walked out of that restaurant with my head high, my shoulders back, and my dignity intact. Behind me, I could hear the chaos beginning, voices rising, Patricia's sobs, Gerald's angry protests. But I didn't look back. I'd said what needed to be said. The cool night air hit my face as I stepped outside. The valet looked surprised to see me leaving early, but he quickly brought my 12-year-old sedan around. I tipped him well, probably more than he made in a week, and drove home through the city streets. When I got home, I sat in my modest living room in my old house, surrounded by my simple things, and I smiled. Not because I'd humiliated anyone, not because I'd proven anything, but because I'd stood up for myself, because I'd refused to accept being treated as less than, because I'd taught a lesson that needed teaching. My phone rang 20 minutes later. Marcus. Mama, where are you? Home, baby. Are you okay? I'm perfect. How are things there? He laughed, but it was a stressed sound. It's a mess. Patricia locked herself in the bathroom. Gerald is trying to save face by telling everyone you must have forged those documents. Devin pulled me aside and said that was the most badass thing he's ever seen. And Brittany, he paused. Brittany told her parents that if they can't treat you with respect, they're not welcome at the wedding. Oh, baby, I didn't want to cause. You didn't cause anything, Mama. They did, and it's time someone called them on it. Brittany's been scared of disappointing them her whole life, but tonight she saw something. She saw real strength, real class, real power, and it wasn't in her parents' checkbook. Is she all right? She's shaken up, but she's strong, stronger than I knew. She's standing her ground. Good, that's good. Mama, why didn't you ever tell me about the money, about everything you built? I thought about that question. Because I needed you to build your own life, Marcus. If you'd known I was wealthy, it would have changed you. Maybe not in big ways, but in small ones. You might have worked less hard, taken fewer risks, depended on me more. And I didn't want that. I wanted you to become the man you are, not the man you might have been. I understand that now. But Mama, you've been living in that house, driving that car, wearing those clothes. And I'm happy. That's what people like Patricia and Gerald don't understand. Happiness isn't about having the biggest house or the newest car or the most expensive clothes. It's about peace. It's about knowing who you are and being comfortable with that. It's about relationships that matter,
Love that's real. I love you, Mama, so much. I love you too, baby. Now go take care of your fiancée. She needs you tonight. After we hung up, I changed into my comfortable pajamas, made myself a cup of tea, and sat by the window. The neighborhood was quiet. Mr. Johnson across the street was walking his dog. The Martinez family's lights were on, probably watching TV together. Normal people, living normal lives. My people. The next morning, my phone started ringing at 7 a.m. First Marcus, checking in, then Brittany, apologizing again through tears. Then, surprisingly, Devin. Mrs. Hayes, I just wanted to say thank you. What you did last night, it needed to happen. My in-laws have been that way for as long as I've known them. Crystal was starting to become like them, measuring everyone by their bank account. But last night, she saw something different. She saw that real power doesn't need to announce itself. I think it changed something in her. That's good to hear, Devin. Thank you for calling. Are you still coming to the wedding? That depends on Marcus and Brittany. If they still want me there, I'll be there. They want you there, Mrs. Hayes. Trust me. The wedding was beautiful. Patricia and Gerald showed up, but they were different, quieter, humbled. They didn't ignore me, but they didn't approach me either. They stood at a distance, watching, perhaps finally seeing me for who I really was. I didn't need to wear an expensive dress or flash my wealth. I wore something elegant but simple, because the message had been sent. The lesson had been taught. During the reception, Patricia finally approached me. Her eyes were red, her face tired. Eleanor, she said quietly, may I speak with you? Of course. We walked to a quiet corner of the venue. She took a deep breath. I owe you an apology, a real one. What I did, how I treated you, it was inexcusable. I made assumptions. I was condescending. I was cruel. And I did it because... She paused, struggling. Because it made me feel better about myself. Because putting you down made me feel elevated. And that's a terrible reason. That's a terrible way to be. Yes, it is, I said simply. I grew up poor, really poor, and I fought so hard to get out of that, to build something better, to never go back. And somewhere along the way, I started looking down on the people I left behind, the people who reminded me of where I came from. And that's wrong. That's so wrong. It is, I agreed. But recognizing it is a start. Can you forgive me? I looked at her for a long moment. I can forgive you, Patricia, but I won't forget. And I won't tolerate being treated that way again. Not from you, not from anyone. I understand, and I promise it won't happen again. We'll see, I said, not harshly, but honestly. Gerald approached me carefully. Eleanor, may I add my apology? I was wrong. We were wrong. We judged you and we had no right. No, you didn't. I agreed. For what it's worth, I told my colleagues at the hospital about what happened, not as a boast, but as a confession. I told them how I assumed things about you, how I treated you, and how wrong I was. Several of them shared their own stories about being judged or underestimated. It's been humbling. Good, I said. Humility is good for the soul. As the reception continued, I watched Marcus and Brittany dance. They looked happy, truly happy, and that's all I'd ever wanted for my son. Brittany caught my eye and smiled, a genuine, warm smile. She mouthed, "Thank you," across the dance floor. I nodded back.
Later, as I was preparing to leave, Marcus stopped me. Mama, Brittany and I talked. We're not taking their $200,000. And we're not taking your $300,000 either. Marcus, let me finish. We want to do this on our own. Build our own life, our own way, the way you taught me. But we want you to know that we'll come to you for advice, for wisdom, for guidance, because that's worth more than any amount of money. I hugged him tight. That's the smartest thing you've ever said. I learned from the best, he whispered. As I drove home that night, through my neighborhood, past the houses I owned and the ones I didn't, past the families sitting on porches and the kids playing in yards, I felt complete. Not because I'd won some battle or proven some point, but because I'd stayed true to who I was. I'd built wealth without losing myself. I'd achieved success without forgetting where I came from. And I taught my son the difference between having money and having worth. And I showed people who thought they were better than me that class isn't something you can buy. The next week, Patricia sent flowers to my house with a card. Thank you for the lesson. I'm still learning. Patricia. I put them in a vase, my old vase from the thrift store, and smiled. 6 months later, Marcus and Brittany bought their first house, in my neighborhood, 3 blocks from me, with the down payment they saved themselves. We want our kids to grow up here, Brittany explained. We want them to grow up the way Marcus did, with real values, real neighbors, real life. Patricia came to visit their new house. She walked through the neighborhood, looking around with new eyes. It's lovely, she said quietly. I never would have seen it before, but I see it now. Good, I replied. That's growth.
Today, I still live in my modest house. I still drive my old car. I still wear simple clothes, because that's who I am. The money in my bank account doesn't define me. What defines me is how I treat people, how I raised my son, how I stand up for myself without tearing others down. Patricia and Gerald are different now too. Not perfect, but better, more aware, more careful with their assumptions. And slowly, carefully, we're building something that looks like respect. Because that's what this was always about. Not money, not revenge, not proving anything. It was about respect, about seeing people for who they are, not what they have, about understanding that worth comes from within, not from without. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is let people underestimate you, then show them they were wrong, not with cruelty, but with truth. That's real power. That's real wealth. That's real class. And no amount of money can buy that.